Good morning. Welcome back to my part two of what it's like to be poor. We're back at the park and it's about 7:30 in the morning. It's absolutely beautiful. The sun's coming out. Spring is springing. Spring has sprung and it's absolutely gorgeous. This is part two of my What It's Like to Be Poor series. If you didn't see part one, check that out now. Go to part one, catch up with that, and then come back here because this is the part two. Okay, good morning to everyone, to all my subscribers. I'm so grateful and so happy for you. So thank you for listening to my rant. This is part two, and we're in Queen's Park in Brighton. It's absolutely gorgeous. Have a look. Look at that. It's lovely. And this is the part two of my discussion. We're talking about what it's like to be poor. What's it like to be poor? What's it like to live in poverty? Well, in the first part, we touched on some things like, you know, always being hot, always being cold, you know, eating crappy food, that kind of thing. But in the second part, I want to touch on how it affects your mental health. Because when you live in a capitalist society that literally values you, or your worth on how much money you've got, then it can affect your mental health. And it affects your mental health because you think of yourself as being less than, especially when you have. So my arm's getting tired. Especially when you've lived in poverty as a kid. You know, when you go to school and you haven't got the right clothes, you haven't got the right trainers. You know, everyone else has got fashionable clothes, people are going on holiday, kids are being taken on holiday, and you've got nothing. You know, it makes you feel terrible. It makes you feel like nothing. You know what I mean? It makes you feel smaller than that. And living on the street and having people look at you like you're a piece of shit on the bottom of their shoe just because you've got no money and you've got nowhere to live, that's a terrible thing. That can really, 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 really hurt you, and it's really unkind. I mean, I personally think that anyone who abuses homeless people should be kicked off the end of the pier, you know, but that's my opinion. I'm funny like that. So, mental health, poverty has a serious and detrimental effect on your mental health. That's not even an argument, okay? So, when you're dealing with people, this is, you know, I've had some amazing, amazing, amazing people work with me, like key workers, nurses, doctors, people like that, people that you come across who've just been so compassionate and so helpful and so kind, and it really can make a difference. But on the flip side of that, you've also got professionals who dismiss you, who treat you with open contempt, who don't listen to what you're saying, don't care about your problems, and don't give a shit about you or anyone, you know, fuck you and everyone who looks like you. That's their attitude. So it can go both ways. But one thing I'm immensely proud of in England, sorry, I've forgotten how to talk. One thing I'm immensely proud of in England is our attitude towards others. We are a caring people, we're a strong people. British people are tenacious and determined and very generous and kind people. We do look after people here. I would rather be poor in England than poor anywhere else on earth. Let me just say that now and get that out there because that needs to be acknowledged. It's all very well saying, oh, it's terrible, it's this and it's that. But in England, actually, it's not that bad. You know, it's like everything, it's what you make it, isn't it? But there is poverty here. There is poverty in England. So that's where I'm coming from. One other thing that forgot to mention in part one as well is living on top of other people, crowded, you know, like not just two people sharing a room, but four people, five people, you know, three people sleeping on the same sofa. You know, it's crazy. You can have like a one bedroom flat and have 10 or 15 people living in it. that's that's the reality, you know. And I've lived right on top of other people, you know, like sharing a bed with two other people, or sharing a sofa with two other people, or sharing a room with like four other people, or living in hostels. And you know, when you live in hostels, although you might technically have your own cell or room, as they call it, it's just like a prison cell. I don't know if you have these in America. You do. You have halfway houses in America, and you have like sort of stopgap kind of places, and we've got those in Brighton as well in England, hostels, and they're like you get a little prison cell, like a tiny little prison cell. It's about the same size as like a normal bathroom, like tiny, 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 like a prison cell, and you get given one of those. And although it's technically yours, you are still living on top of loads and loads of other people. So overcrowding, living with lots and lots of people, that's a big part of being poor. Not having privacy, not having your own privacy, not having your own space, always being on top of people. But as I said in the first one, it teaches you to care for people. It teaches you to care for other people. When you're living on top of other people like that, it's hard to ignore them. It's really hard to ignore people when you're living with them like that, like just stacked on top of each other like fucking sardines. It's hard to ignore people. Like rich people, it's easier for them to be callous, I often think, because they live in these huge houses on these huge grounds that aren't on top of people, that aren't living on top of people. So, of course, it's easier for them to distance themselves from other human beings, and poor people can't do that, you know. And that's where our sense of community. Oh, there's a beautiful little bench here. I'm going to sit down there. Look at that, right at the bottom of an oak tree. No, I'm not sure why that's important. um, yeah, overcrowding, living on top of people, that's a big part of it. But when you living on top of people like that, it teaches you social justice. It teaches you how to care for people because you can't ignore people. So you are naturally concerned about. So if somebody's ill or they need something, we all pitch in together. Like we all share our food. Well, that's not true for everyone, but for me it is. I'll share anything I've got. You know, and a lot of the people that I know that have been poor or poor now, they'll literally give you the shirt off their back because they know, they understand, they've been there, they know what it's like to go without. You know, I will give people anything, even if it's just my time, you know, even if I can just be nice to people, I will make an effort. So there's that. And like we touched on in the first episode, you have to, well, this is one thing. Being poor teaches you to be kinder, it teaches you to be resilient, and it teaches you to have empathy for others. You know, that's not universally true, but that's true for me. You know, so I would really love to hear your comments and your stories. Did you grow up poor? Do you know people that grow up poor? Do you think that the things that I'm saying are right? Or do you think that there's anything I've missed? There's a lot I've missed because this is just an overview, you know. I would love to get into like kind of the deeper meanings of the mental illness and that kind of thing. There's a lot of mental illness where there's poverty, and where there's poverty there's also crime. So if you want to live in a safer and more secure society, then the answer is to take care of the people that live in that society. Desperate people do desperate things. You know what I mean? I mean, like, it's 7:30 in the morning, and I've seen about, this is not an exaggeration, there must have been 15 people queuing up to score drugs just over there. They're gone now. And like when old ladies are going to shop, and there's loads of addicts in the doorway, and there's people, you know, poverty breeds crime, poverty breeds addiction, poverty breeds all kinds of things that are not safe. Okay, so a safer, secure society is a society that takes care of its people. So there's that. So for everyone who's watching, thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Please be kind to everybody, everywhere, every time, in the office, at home, in the shop, at school, whatever you're doing, please be kind. Please have empathy. Let's leave each other alone and let's get through this. This is Filthy Ketchup. Thank you. Bye.